because your pastors that are standing on the pulpit don't speak against homosexuality. And the pastors that are standing on the pulpit cannot speak against homosexuality because they themselves are largely homosexual. You cannot condemn what you are. You dare not bring it up for fear of lightning striking you in the middle of the message due to your hypocrisy. You dare not bring it up just in case your tapes come out. And I've been speaking about sex tapes here for years. Since the pastors will not admit it because they are the main actors in these sex tapes, that means that God has to bring an outside voice. And I've always said that by the time God goes outside to bring the truth, you're done, you're cooked, it's over. That means he gave you multiple chances to come clean, like Bishop Eddie Long had chances to come clean. And you declined to come clean. You also declined to repent in person with God. And then when the net of deceit and the net of sin grows too large, out loud to the people. Yet in the Bible, when people sinned against God, they would fall upon the mercy of God. They would fall upon the mercy of God and say, oh God, have mercy. And these were entire kings. These pastors are not even kings. They're not rulers of anything but their own small insular kingdoms. But they're too mighty to repent. They're too mighty to come clean. And the reason they cannot repent is because they have huge congregations that are enabling them, sympathizing with their sin. Even when the pastor is exposed, the people say things like, it's all right, pastor, we all sin. Do you not know that the Bible tells you that you should not participate in another man's iniquity, that you should not participate in another man's sin? Have you no fear of God? Are you able to stand before God and repeat some of the things that you have said? Are you able to stand before God and say, yes, now that I'm dead and my answers are locked in, God, I continue to support Marcus Rogers. I continue to support T.D. Jakes. I continue in death to identify with the sin that I supported them in. And yes, I do stand by what I said. We're all human, and we all join the Illuminati and sacrifice people and drink blood and eat flesh. I said it, Lord, and I'm saying it now in front of you. You wouldn't have the nerve or the guts or the tongue. So why are you doing it now instead of repenting, instead of drawing back your hand? The Lord is upset at sodomy all the time. He's upset whether it takes place in what adults call, oh, but we're mature, consenting adults. You don't have the right to consent to iniquity. Who gave you the right to consent to sin? Sin is a reproach to any people. How can you say that you have the right because the two of you are agreeing? Can two agree to murder and make it not a sin? Can a husband and a wife in covenant in their home murder a lodger in their home, murder someone who's renting from them and say, yes, but we're married. And so marriage covers that. And we also agreed. So the agreement covers that. How can you agree to sin and think that you will escape judgment? In the sodomy ritual part 1 and part 2, God was saying that those who continue with the sin, that your family will bury you. He said that you will get sick with something that cannot be diagnosed. The name of that thing that you will get sick with is judgment. There's no medical equipment on earth to diagnose judgment. When you are judged, that's it. It's finished, it's permanent, it's over. All that's left is the grieving. You may be alive, yet you will still be dead. You will be dead man walking, as we say it. And so the Lord was angry and he was speaking about this thing, but the anger was so muted. The anger was like cold. Not that God himself is cold, but it was like something settled, like something done. If you are struggling with this thing in your life, it is time to stop following the brigade that makes excuses. It is time to leave the lie that is called born this way. What you call born this way actually means I struggled with this iniquity from the womb. And that iniquity comes in through what is known as soul wounds. Your mother carrying you in the womb, your father punching your mother in the stomach, your father extremely abusive to your mother during the time of her pregnancy, your father making even a casual remark along the lines of, we're not prepared for this, and is there anything you you can do about it because I don't really want this baby. Before your ears were formed, Satan was listening, and the spirit of rejection is a real thing. Being a young boy or a young girl in the house, very little, and yet seeing that your sibling of the opposite sex is treated better than you. Young boys observing that baby sister, he's 3, and the baby comes in and the child has not been prepared for what it means when a new baby comes in. So all the boy sees is boys are not loved, girls are loved. That's how you end up with these transing children. That's how you end up with trancing males. You can be 35 years old, and that iniquity that was sleeping in you, and iniquity doesn't always have to be your personal sin. And iniquity is simply a class of sin that traditionally passes down through the bloodline. You have a gay father. It is very likely that even if your father lays down with your mother and procreates and never confesses to his past, never confesses to what he was doing before, that thing will wake up in a young boy at 15 when puberty kicks in, when natural processes kick in. That's when a lot of people begin to have these struggles. There's also those of you who were experimenting through college. You came up in a good home where you knew the difference between your mother and your father. You knew as a woman that you were not the same as your brother. And then you went off to MSU and all the U's, and you started laying down with Hallie and Sally. That was your phase all through college. And then you knew that you were coming back to a conservative town. And so you came back and you married. You married a man who didn't know that you were laying with women. You didn't think that was material enough to disclose to your future spouse. You also never repented. You also never had deliverance from those acts. There are many people who commit sin, and then they simply think that when they're done with the sin, they can dispose of it like an empty McDonald's wrapper and walk away from it. Sin sticks. Sin is the cultural attaché of our times. It will follow you everywhere like a tail until you repent. Satan has legal rights against all who sin. He's your father. He's your boss. And the demons who serve him will rule over all who sin, all who participate in sin. You cannot get done with sin by simply saying, okay, I'm done. It was a phase. You must repent. And for sins of the body, sins of the flesh, you simply have to go through deliverance. You simply have to go through deliverance. Because many people, they repent of a certain sin, and then what happens is they will come into the church and they will go through the process of repenting, which is fine. But because there's no deliverance attached to it, which is, in law, we say that possession is 9/10 of the law. That's the ad hoc rule. In fact, it's not even ad hoc. It's basically written. It's basically taught. Possession is 9/10 of the law, and to make it extremely applicable to the United States right now, all you have to think of is squatters' rights. Squatters' rights. You own the house. You own the house. You paid the bills on this house. You carried the mortgage on this house for 6 years, 9 years. And then someone moves in, and then all of a sudden, in certain jurisdictions, the state is defending that person and saying that that person has rights. You can't get the police to get them out. You can't get the courts to evict them. They're in your house using up your light, running up your light bill, running up your water bill, walking to the fridge where you buy food and taking food and eating it, food that you paid for. It's an infuriating thing. And yet the squatter is in possession of your house, and the law is backing them up. In the spiritual realm, it's the same thing. If you go and touch the demon's things, if you go and touch anal sex, you don't just get to walk away from it and say, oh, that was an interesting time in my life. No, there will be a battle because you have now become, to all extents and purposes, you are now the possession. You are in the possession of the enemy. You are in the possession of those demons that control perversion, whoredoms, and homosexuality itself.